So everyone, I cannot wait to introduce you to Rachel here today. Rachel's been a part of my life for a long time, but Rach, tell me, what is some of your earliest memories of self-harm?
So I think for me, self-harm started at quite a young age.
Yeah.
I guess I can really remember one particular incident when I would have been grade 1, so 6 or so. And I was at school and I was skipping outside, and I noticed that if I tripped myself up on the rope, that I would graze my legs if I was doing it on some gravel.
So you're doing it on
purpose. So I would push myself to skip as long and hard, as fast as I could, that I was tripping myself up. And at the end of it, my legs were grazed and torn up. And I think that was something that was quite intentional for me. And so that's something that I can think of, that from a young age, it was almost a strategy of, a pattern in my life.
Attention, someone to see these grazes on your legs?
Yeah, I think it was a couple of different things. I think there was definitely the attention element in it for me, but as well as just a distracting thing and making me think of other things that were than what was going on. So it was something.
So it's a distraction thing. And 6, there's so many parents out there are going to go, 6 years old, you're joking.
Yeah.
But for you, grade 1 was some of your earliest memories of self-harm.
Definitely. And because I guess as parents we see a 6-year-old cutting or burning doing those kind of things to harm themselves. But I think there are definitely young people that are finding ways that they can not look after themselves as well.
That's a great statement there, because it's actually the intention that defines self-harm, not the behaviour. So often we look at cutting or burning, and if a young person's cutting, or we can see cuts, they self-harm. But we forget it's actually the intention and not caring for ourselves.
Not caring for yourself, definitely.
So your mum rang me when you were about 14 years old, and you were one of my first clients. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, my guinea pigs, I call you. Turned out okay, so we're all right.
We're good. We're good.
But you know what? At 14 years old, was that some of your hardest years? Tell me what your roughest patches looked like and what your probably parents were seeing at that time.
Yeah. So I think looking back on my journey, I think probably that 13, 14 through to about 16, 17 were definitely some of the hardest. And you can see the shift from the younger years where it wasn't the intentional, I'm going to cut or burn myself. It was just more that not looking after myself, through to the 13, 14 plus years where I was intentionally cutting or burning or starving myself, so that it was definitely...
some of those burns on your arms, I mean, they're burns.
You can see they're quite...
They are burns,
intentional.
So we're not talking about scratching here. You were like burning up that flesh of yours.
Definitely, and that was something that I needed to use at the time in my life to cope.
And did it work at the time?
It was definitely temporary. And obviously self-harm got to a point for me that it was a couple of times a day even that I was needing to use it to get through, whether it was a good day or a bad day.
Is that because it's so addictive, or there was legitimate things triggering that off?
I think a bit of both. So it is definitely an addictive behaviour. It's something that young people feel the need that they need to continue doing, and once you start doing it, it almost needs to get worse each time, because that first time it wasn't quite enough, or it didn't quite...
You get used to it quite quick.
Definitely. And it's, I know at times with some of my worst self-harm incidents, it's almost like I didn't actually feel it until after, and then I would have this gaping wound or just raw flesh almost. And the self-harm, I guess, was continued through me not caring for it. I wouldn't dress it, or I wouldn't treat it, or I wouldn't take the proper care for it that
it needed to happen.
And so that was just like prolonging the experience.
Yeah, and that was a deliberate thing for you.
That was deliberate for me.
Yeah, so not caring for it afterwards and going through that whole cycle.
Yeah.
Do you know, I know that you're a student counsellor now and you're seeing young people who are self-harming in your work now, and you're having these conversations with parents and maybe telling them for the first time that their child is self-harming. What kind of emotions do you see parents go through?
Oh, it's massive, and I guess being a parent for myself now, I can put myself in those shoes of being a parent, finding out that your young person is choosing to harm their body, and so there's no wonder it
goes against everything, doesn't it? Like why?
Yeah, there's no wonder they're so overwhelmed and maybe even a bit angry and hurt. And what have I done wrong to make my young person?
Why would my child want to harm? And they're giving them a great life. And even if there are things going on in their life, it's quite, like for a lot of parents, they look at it as quite as an extreme reaction, hey?
Definitely. And so I guess my biggest advice would be to not have that reaction with your young person. That reaction is fine, and it's actually quite important.
And process it away from them.
You need to process that, otherwise it will come out with your young person. But who can you have that reaction with? Who's a safe other person that you can do that with, so that when you're with your young person, you can really just be with them.
Those first moments are really important,
crucial.
Aren't they? They really are.
Yeah.
What's one question that you would advise parents to ask in that moment?
I think just journey with them. So what is going on for you, and what can we do as a family?
What can we do to help?
What can we do together? What's our next steps?
And not assuming you know what's going to help.
Definitely.
I know you've been through a variety of help over the years as well. What really worked for you?
So I've seen a number of psychologists, psychiatrists, counsellors, mentors, lots of different professionals, as well as just friends and people in my life that were important to me.
And both valid?
Both very valid.
The
both
outcome
important.
of both of their input was just as important?
Definitely. I think it's that team approach that is hugely important.
Agreed.
But for me, it didn't stick until I was ready, until it was my choice that I actually wanted to help.
There's a real difference between a young person saying they want to stop self-harming and being really ready to stop self-harming, isn't there? And that's a big gap sometimes.
That's it. It's different for everyone.
Yeah, it's patience for parents wanting them to stop, and they're sometimes not ready to.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's a complex issue. There's so much to self-harm. There is the attention-seeking factor of it, and I know that's something that me as a 14-year-old would have rolled up against. That's not attention-seeking, but there is an element that
it's a reward in itself, isn't
that says, I'm not doing okay, I need help. I need attention. But there's all the other issues of what is the self-harm masking or covering or distracting me from?
I think distraction's a big part of this, isn't it?
Part of it.
I mean, when a young person cuts and they're distracted by a wound and blood on their, themselves, and then the numb afterwards and the knock-on of just that kind of collapse afterwards.
Definitely.
That whole cycle is just a real cycle to get addicted to, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think we all, even as adults, can have coping mechanisms that aren't the healthiest or aren't the safest and could be considered controversially self-harm. Like if we go, I'm going to eat that entire tub of ice cream or that entire packet of Tim Tams or...
I've never done that.
No, never, just hypothetically speaking. Or I'm going to push myself at the gym so much. And we see these as almost normal ways of coping, but they can be destructive, and that's like we said earlier, the intent behind self-harm.
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful point for parents, because I know there's a lot of young people that are just not taking care of themselves, and it's not a healthy mindset for them to live in, is it?
No, not at all.
All right, so talk to me. Fast forwarding your life 10, 15, 20 years time, do you ever thought it could be this good?
Not at all. No. And I think back to, I saw something on social media the other day, and it just had a comment around the lines of 10 years ago for me, 15 years or so ago. I was 17 and I wanted life to end. Fast forward to now, I can hear my husband playing in the other room with our baby girl. don't give up, life gets better.
Yeah.
And just the comparison of where I was then to where I am now.
Mm-hmm. I think some parents need that as a screensaver or something.
Definitely.
Don't give up, life gets better.
Life gets better. Yeah.
Hey, thank you. That's just insightful and I'm sure really inspiring for so many people. And thanks for listening.